And welcome back. Our guest now is Laely Heron, who is the owner of the highly honored Heron Wines. And Laely began working with wines 10 years ago, and now she's working in France and in Spain and the U.S. It's a remarkable story. I, of course, am from the Italian-American tradition. And I know from the time I spent also in Modesto, these big wine groups like Gallo and others.
You can say factory.
Yeah, factories.
I'm kidding.
They're male-dominated. I mean, it's an industry that's really, because of the European traditions with winemaking, they did not look at women as anything maybe more than marketing or supporting the brothers that took over the company from the founder. Am I right? I'm not wrong on that.
Well, actually, there are a lot of women winemakers. I mean, not a lot, actually. I should say there are some women. So, of course, in marketing, you're right, in administrative areas, roles. And once in a while, there'll be a woman whose husband started it, or brother, or father. I don't know very many women who've started brands, but I do know a lot of great women winemakers, but still the vast majority is definitely men.
So how,
definitely
and
men.
How did this happen to you?
Well, okay, I had a very unconventional childhood, and it kind of rolls into my adult life. I grew up overseas. My parents were very young. We lived literally all over the world. I didn't go to school, so by the time I actually came back to America, went to high school in Denver, went to the University of Colorado, I was a victim of wanderlust, and I moved to Bordeaux, France, my junior year in college, supposedly to clean up the French that I had learned as a child living in Africa. But once I was in Bordeaux, I ended up meeting all these great wine people, and I became very passionate about wine. I was also a college student, so what do you think? And I was so interested in wine that a winemaker that I met actually really encouraged me to start studying winemaking. So that's kind of how it started in Bordeaux, France.
Did he think, or did he see something natural already in you?
Passion.
For wine?
For wine. And learning about it.
And tell me, what is that passion?
I just think it's really exciting. I think I have always been very interested in food, flavors, wines, smells. Again, part of that I think.
And
is
do you have a natural
curiosity?
Curiosity.
I don't know if I have any ability any more than you do, but it's something that I've spent my life being fascinated by, and so that's what led me into studying winemaking.
And in this case, when you own your own company, it's much like being a filmmaker or a production, someone who owns a production company. You have total control so that you determine what that final product is. Do you think, I mean, did you have an actual palate for this, or did you develop that? Because you ultimately decide that basically by your taste.
That's exactly
these
right.
wines. How does that develop?
I think it's, well, you're from an Italian background. How's your spaghetti sauce?
I can tell when it's right and wrong.
Exactly. And me, when I drink wine, I can tell what's balanced and what's not balanced. A lot of people, especially, well, a lot of people might have an idea that it should be American style, or it should be French in style, or it should be Italian in style wine. I just think it should be balanced in style. So for me, my opinion of balance is what I want to do with my wines.
And you know, the reviews I read about your wines, if that was, there's another word, but that was such a primary word, balance. It was used so often and by so many different critics from so many different journals and magazines.
Well, I'm glad we
and
all
so
agree.
many great honors. And now the other thing you bring to the table is you wanted to make it affordable for people to enjoy. And that's another compliment that I saw from the reviews, that it's a tremendous value. And that must, I mean, when you can bring something in to that level where more people can enjoy it, and it still gets quality levels that are as high as more expensive wines, that must be a great talent.
Talent, or maybe that the market is, well, thank you. And I think that people are looking for an alternative. So many times wines that are sort of in the under 15, say the $10 to $15, $9.99 to $12.99 price range, which most of my wines are, so often that price range can be kind of commoditized. So often, and especially as the wine business grows.
What do you mean by that, commoditized?
Because there's so many more people drinking wine, and because that's something that's so interesting to a lot of people, we're starting to see a lot in the wine business, and I shouldn't say starting, but you know, there's big business in the wine business. There are big players with huge, huge companies, and they understand dollars and product, and you have guys from Procter & Gamble in the wine business now. But then you also still have the old-fashioned wine business. But a lot of times...
Which is more like yours?
Definitely.
Because you're the entrepreneur.
I'm an entrepreneur. I'm also, I hadn't had the corporate background at all. Before I started my business, I hadn't really worked very hard on a lot of different things. So I think that, I think coming to the business fresh, not wanting to be a commodity, wanting to provide to the market something that's unusual at that price point, a wine with a lot of soul, character, something different than what the big companies they may want to sort of cater to the lowest common denominator, or to be a people-pleasing wine. And these are people-pleasing wines too, but they're also for serious wine people.
That's what I gathered from the reviews. Now, talking about how a bottle of wine gets to this point, you worry about the grapes, you worry about production, you worry about distribution, you worry about the label. How do you, how you have newer wines that you've recently developed. What's the genesis of a new wine like that for you?
New wine, okay, well, I'll give you an example. I have done something very interesting lately. I started this new brand called Sexto. Okay, Heron I've had for 10 years, but Sexto is a brand new thing, and I'm doing it in Spain. So what that meant for me was going over to Spain, spending a lot of time meeting different winemakers, meeting different growers. I purchase fruit for most of my wines. In France, I have a vineyard that I lease, but in California, I buy fruit from 13 different growers, and that's what I did in Spain. So I first met growers from whom I could purchase grapes. And then I found a winery that I could, instead of having my own winery and paying big mortgage to the bank and getting loans and building a winery that would only work for me, I actually use somebody else's winery. I pay them a fee, and it keeps the cost such that I can really focus on quality in the bottle.
I see.
So that's what I do. So getting back to...
But I want to go back to...
Sure.
I want to go back to that point just before the first bottle came out. So you went and talked to growers. They have grapes.
They do.
Do you taste the grapes?
I do. I taste. I see other wines that have been made from those grapes. I look at viticultural conditions. I see where the grapes are relative to the sun, which microclimate they're on. Are they on a hill?
They used a phrase, your wine's more maritime grape oriented, or what does that? I mean, closer obviously to the ocean or to this Mediterranean or to a sea?
I buy grapes, and my own vineyard is actually quite inland, not maritime. It's actually a mountainous region in France. That's the one vineyard that I am really more in control of. But in California, and also in Spain, I always try to go for the highest altitude I can find. I mean, for me, altitude's important, cool climate's important. And so those are the kinds of things I'm looking for when I'm looking. But it all depends. Each grape variety, Chardonnay, I need different things than I do for Cabernet Sauvignon, different from a Spanish blend.
Going back to Sexto then, so but the grapes, how are you able to translate the flavor of the grapes to what will be the ultimate bottle of wine? Is that experimentation? It's
experimentation. It's an intellectual exercise sometimes. I thought I knew what I wanted with Sexto. First, I wanted just a Tempranillo. Spanish wines are very, 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 very hot right now in America. Everybody wants Spanish wines. And I love Tempranillo, and I thought, I just want a Tempranillo. But then I found this great region, Terra Alta, right next to a very famous Priorat, and I thought, ooh, I'd like to actually do a blend of things like Carignan, Grenache, Tempranillo, those are kind of the obvious from Spain, a little bit of Cabernet Sauvignon for structure, Syrah for spiciness, and then a very bizarre cousin to Grenache called Udine Pelut Noir, and it was the 6th grape.
I see.
And that's why I named it 6th. In Spanish, Sexto means 6th, and so there you have it.
And then you determined that blend by taste.
It started intellectually. I thought I knew what I wanted.
Yes.
The reality in the practice of actually tasting
Yes.
was quite different. I ended up playing with the different blending, and at the end of the day, it kind of matched what I intellectually had wanted.
And when was it introduced?
Recently, in California, this wine has been out no longer than 6 weeks.
Oh, it's that new.
This is brand new, yeah.
And have any of the critics made comments yet, or it's too early?
No, I've been very fortunate. The Chronicle gave it a great plug. Andy Blue from Bon Appetit magazine gave it a great plug.
That's terrific.
So, yeah.
After 6 weeks.
Yeah, we're on our way. This is a rocking little wine. I mean, Heron is established, and it's also got its place. You know, it's unique, but it's fun to have too.
Now, when you work so hard during the day and you come home at night, do you have a glass of your own wine to relax, or is it so much part of your business that you don't want to think about it, or do you think about it even at home?
I think about wine all the time. I love wine. I love food. They go together. Wine is food. It's part of my life. I like drinking my own wines, but I also love drinking other people's wines, and that's how I learn. And it's very important to me to really have an international perspective.
Mm-hmm.
So I drink wines from all different countries and study winemaking in all different countries. Even today, my vacations are usually to go study winemaking somewhere else, so I can learn.
Coming back to where we started, then, your respect. There is no, in your opinion, gender bias when you're among other winemakers. You're respected now as a winemaker, or do you still see a residue of any residue of that patriarchal or origins?
You know what's always funny, and my friends always laugh, and I always say, it's so typical that it'll be me and like 13 men. There just aren't very many women doing what I'm doing. So I don't think that there's a bias. It's just kind of unusual. So there.
Do you think there'll be more women that are? It would be natural for women. Because of their sensitivities, maybe that there would be more women in the business. Do you think that's coming, or do you think it's going to be kind of difficult?
I think it would be great, and I see a lot of salespeople. I actually have a few distributors in the country. Wine business, we have to sell by law through distributors,
Mm-hmm.
and I have one distributor that's owned by a woman, and then one brand that's owned by a woman that I know of a bigger brand. I mean, there's some great winemakers, like I said. I think that it'll come.
Good.
I haven't seen it yet, but I'm sure it'll come.
The crew is anxious now to enjoy your wine.
Wonderful.
Laely Heron, thanks for being with us.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.
And thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time. For program schedules, post-production notes, and free streaming video of select interviews, visit our website at www.sfunscripted.com.